If you're moving to Boston and you're wondering what that Boston lifestyle is like and just overall, what do people do here in Boston? In this video, we're going over 10 weird things we do here in Boston that you probably wouldn't know about unless you live here. So let's get into it. Hey there, welcome back to the Living Boston channel. My name is Jacob Bystrup. Real quick, if you're moving to Boston, anywhere in the city or somewhere in the suburbs, if you want some help navigating this crazy real estate market, buying a house, buying a condo, anywhere in the city or the suburbs, I'm a real estate advisor here. So if you would like to work together, I love the reach outs that I get through the YouTube channel. So please feel free to send me a text, send me an email. Let's get in touch and let's get that conversation started to help you with that move to Boston. So getting right into this video, just 10 random, quirky, kind of funny things about living in Boston as far as the way we do things here, the way people talk, and just things we do a little bit differently than what you're probably used to. So first up, number one, if you're a dog person and you have a dog and you're moving to Boston, you need to get a license for your dog. So yes, you heard that correctly. If you live in Boston and you have a dog, you have to fill out paperwork and get a license for your dog. Now, the reasoning behind that is kind of the idea is that if you guys get separated, if you lose your dog, if something happens, the license is like an ID to help reunite you guys quicker and make it easier. Supposedly, there's a $50 fine if you get caught having a dog without a license. I don't know how they're gonna check. I don't know how anyone would find out. But there's a fee if you have a dog and you don't have a license for your dog in Boston. And that is independent of any building you might live in that has a pet policy or any fees for having a pet. The dog license is a thing for all of Boston, regardless of where you live. So if you're moving to Boston and you have a dog, make sure to get your dog a license. Second thing on the list, if you're moving to Boston, good luck getting around. Whether you're walking or you're driving, Boston's urban planning is kind of a nightmare. We don't have a block system like a lot of other cities, except in a few neighborhoods. Boston's, street system kind of looks like a messed up spider web. You have a bunch of these wacky streets throughout downtown Boston. There is no organization. There is no method to the madness. They go in one direction sometimes, and they go like all over the place. Sometimes they're dead ends. Sometimes they'll take you in a loop. It's just a nightmare. Whether you're walking around downtown Boston or you're driving, which is even worse, getting around the city can be a pain. And in some of the older parts of Boston, like Beacon Hill and North End, you gotta remember, these neighborhoods go back to when we used horses, not cars. So you drive modern day cars down streets that were designed for horses. So you have these narrow and skinny streets that sometimes only go one direction. They're frustrating to navigate. If you miss your turn, good luck. You might be circling around and around for a while to figure out where you're going. Now, of the places in Boston, Back Bay and South Boston are the most organized as far as there is a little bit of structure. They have a nice block system. Back Bay has an alphabetical system, and South Boston uses numbers and letters for the streets divided into east and west, depending on where you are. But downtown Boston, the financial district, West End, good luck getting around because it is difficult to navigate Boston. Third thing on the list, speaking of getting around Boston, we have rotaries, not roundabouts. That's not just a different word. It is a whole different concept for how we use circles for driving here in Boston. Now, if you're wondering, Jacob, what is a rotary and how is that different from a roundabout? Think of a roundabout and make it like 10 times more difficult to navigate. That's a rotary. If you want a good laugh, there's this pretty fun link to check out. I'll put it down below in the description that basically shows you the top 10 worst rotaries in the Boston area. And some of these are actually two rotaries combined into one. I swear, when you're driving through some of these, nobody has any idea what they're doing. You just gotta step on the gas and pray you don't get hit. That is Boston urban planning for you, and that is one of the many reasons why it is such a nightmare sometimes to drive around Boston. I'll put up some pictures to show you examples from that list, but I mean, good luck trying to figure out the logic in these rotaries, because I have no idea, and I've tried to figure it out, and sometimes I still get lost lost, make the wrong turn, I just don't end up where I'm trying to go with these rotaries. Now, the fourth weird thing, again, with transportation is the concept of inbound and outbound trains when you're using the subway system, which people just call the subway the T here in Boston. So some other cities use directions, so they'll have northbound trains and southbound trains. In Boston, there's inbound and there's outbound, depending on where you are in relation to the city center. So basically, with the transit system, there are 4 stops on the T where the 4 lines intersect, and these are kind of the city center for the T system. So these are State Street, Park Street, Government Center, and Downtown Crossing. And the reason we don't use the concept of northbound and southbound is because there's a lot of twists and turns in the T system, so they don't always go the same direction. So using inbound and outbound, basically, if you're going towards any one of those 4 stops in the middle of downtown Boston, you're going inbound. If you're going outbound, that means you're going away from these stops and towards the suburbs. Now, the tricky thing with this is that if you're taking basically a train from one side of downtown to the other side, if you're going through the city center of Boston, inbound becomes outbound. So if you're on the red line going from down in Dorchester towards Cambridge, if you go past Park Street, you're going inbound until you get to Park Street. And then after that, you're then going outbound towards Cambridge because you went through the city and then you're leaving the city into Cambridge. If you're a visual person, this diagram is super helpful, and I wish I had seen it when I first moved to Boston. On any one of these T lines, if you're going towards that T in the middle, that's the city center, you're going inbound. And if you're moving away from it, further outside towards the suburbs, you're going outbound. Keep in mind, they switch when you cross through that middle. So if you're going based off inbound and outbound, you always got to remember which direction you're going compared to the city center. And keep in mind, if you go through it, inbound reverses to outbound. Now, the 5th different thing we do here in Boston is some Boston lingo you want to be aware of if people use a word you're not familiar with. So at the grocery store, shopping carts are called carriages. Dunks, just a nickname for Dunkin Donuts. Getting a drink at the bubbler means getting a drink at the water fountain. A nor'easter is kind of an intense blizzard we get here during the winter. Pru is short for the Prudential Center in Back Bay. Easty, that means East Boston, and Southie is South Boston. And you'll hear people refer to the city of Boston as either the hub or Beantown. Number 6, if nightlife is important to you, you should know happy hours are against the law and everything shuts down at 2 a.m. here in Boston. So clubs, bars, it all ends at 2 a.m. And since happy hours are not allowed, neither are bottomless mimosas at brunch. Trust me, I hear you, it is disappointing. Number 7, so we might not have bottomless mimosas, but people in Boston are obsessed with Dunkin Donuts. If you walk around Boston in the morning when everyone's going to work, or you stop by a drive-thru at a Dunkin Donuts, you will see people in Boston and all around Boston need their dunks. You will see way more people with a cup of Dunkin Donuts in their hand than Starbucks here in Boston. I personally like both. I like to switch it up, but that's kind of a controversial thing here in Boston. Now, number 9, if you like to bowl, bowling in Boston is different. It's a different kind of bowling. It's called candlepin bowling. So basically, the balls are smaller and the pins are taller and skinnier, so it makes it harder to hit them, and it's basically harder than regular bowling. Now, I thought I was pretty decent at bowling to begin with, but I can tell you, if you want to go bowling somewhere in Boston, there is a little bit of a learning curve. Number 9, in the city of Boston, we have a building that will give you the weather forecast of the day. Now, this is the old John Hancock Tower, and the way people remember it is steady blue, clear view, flashing blue, clouds due. Steady red, rain ahead, flashing red, snow instead. Moral of the story, there's 4 different types of weather here in Boston, depending on what the tower says. And number 10, winters in Boston can be freezing and just absolutely brutal. But every so often, we'll have a nice day of weather, and anytime it gets above 50 degrees in February or March, people like to wear short sleeves. Sometimes myself included. Like, I will go for a nice walk around Boston Common with a t-shirt on if there's a 60-degree day in February or March. It is the best feeling. So there you have it, 10 things we do a little bit differently here in Boston. Hope you found this funny and informative. And like I said at the beginning, if you're moving to Boston and relocating to this beautiful city to call it home, if you want some help with that process, send over an email, send a text, give me a call, whatever works for you. Let's get in touch and let's get you here to Boston. So thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Hope you take care. Have a great day. And until next time, I will see you in the next video right here on the Living Boston channel.